All right, let's go over this. First thing I'm going to say that may shock some people are trans women should not play in women's sports. Many people assume, and I've gotten messages from people telling me, you support trans and women's sports, and how many genders are there, and what pronouns do you use? Playing that cultural war BS. And they don't know me at all. Now, let me go over this real quick so I can give you some numbers. I don't want to give you too much information so it doesn't confuse you, but just barely, okay? So follow me with this shortly. And this has to do partly with what happened with Maine's governor, Janet Mills, and Donald Trump a day or 2 days ago at that press conference in the White House, where the Lion King attacked her for supporting trans rights. And that wasn't the case. That's not what she was doing. But let me get back to this here so we can cover this real quickly and get this over with. In a polls in general, cover. I cannot go give you all the polls. You can research yourself. I'm giving you just the heads up here so you can Google online. I don't want to give you too much information you might miss. You can ask Google or any search engine you prefer. Transgender students, athletes, should play on a team that matches their birth sex. More than 60% of the people polled said yes. Second, transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches the gender they transitioned into. Less than 40% of the people. All the Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives, that was the result of the poll. So most people feel that trans women should not be in women's sports, biological women's sports, okay? Then just to give you a little bit more, there's another survey that showed, not a survey, it's a study that showed teenage boys ages, show here from 13, 14, 15 years old, perform at a near level in sports as women who are adults, elite female adults. So a teenage boy at a, I guess, junior high or early high school or even mid-high school perform at the near level of an adult female in sports. And I mean, I guess that's regular teenage boy and adult female without any changes in the hormones or treatments or anything like that. But it should give you an idea what happens when you mix trans women who used to be men who have transitioned. And we hear all the controversies about the New Zealander who competed in a weightlifting competition and beat all women. She is a trans woman that used to be a male. Then we have also, Leah Thomas, the professional swimmer who used to be a male, transitioned into a woman and beat all the girls, all the women in the competition. And there is also other examples that I don't want to go over and take too much time. But let's go over this real quick in terms of states with transgender athlete bans. Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Montana, South Dakota, West Virginia, Florida, Tennessee. And this is from 2022. So maybe by now there's more, I'm sure. And I mean, I have to say, yeah, it's common sense, right? And again, let me clear this up. I believe in gay rights. I believe in gay. I believe in gay marriage. I believe in gay people choosing to live however they want to live, the American way. Live and let live. Don't mind. Let them be. And let's go over this real quick with another poll that shows transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches their their sex at birth. Democrats or liberals polled at 37%. Transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches the gender they transition into. Democrats, 67%. But I disagree with that. I think the poll is a little off. I'll tell you why in a second. Let me go over Republicans or conservatives. Transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches their sex at birth. 85%. Transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches the gender they transitioned into. 15%. And now, independents polled. Transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches their sex at birth. 64%. Transgender student athletes should play on a team that matches their gender they transitioned into. 36%. That shows the independents feel closer to what Republicans feel. And again, I'm going to go back to this. I disagree with this poll in a way because I have spoken to many liberals, people that you can even call libtards many times because they're too extreme on their views. I've spoken to even, I have to be honest, even family members who are very liberal, and they say they don't agree with the trans women in sports issue. They feel that women should play with biological women, period. And trans men should play with biological men. And one of the things is, it was an example that I saw online, somebody saying about how come there isn't so much of an issue with trans men playing in sports? Very few complaints. But there are more complaints with trans women playing in women's sports. It seems like a sexist thing. No, it's a common sense thing. Because when trans men who used to be women playing sports, they're less likely to win. So there's not so much of an argument there. They can play all they want and maybe they'll win, but it's nowhere near what happens when trans women who used to be men play against biological women in sports. They're going to win, like it happened with a few examples I gave you earlier. And the thing that has to do with it is even a little bit more shocking is how conservatives are just doing the total wrong thing when you're trying to bring a point that is very valid. They go through another route that is plain dumb. In 2025, we have so far, believe it or not, over 500 bills in legislatures around the country who are dealing with issues having to do with trans people receiving health care, education, or legal rights, or right to exist, things like that. In 48 states. And then we have more than 500 bills are still active, being processed through the legislature. 22 have failed, have been rejected. And then we have 9 that have passed. And I reviewed those 9. You know, out of those 9, only 1 is about transgender athletes. The other ones had to do with who can use the bathroom or the restroom and who gets to use what pronouns or what not. That's ridiculous. making bills over pronouns and who gets to use the bathroom. That hurts the conservative Republican MAGA cause. That's silly. Just like that Congresswoman Nancy Mace. She's just a backwards person. It's I don't know. This is kind of spellbinding in a very wrong way. And now let's get now to Governor Janet Mills, who has told President Trump, I'll see you in court. And everyone is going crazy about what she says, saying she defends trans athletes, trans women. This is wrong. No, that's not what she's about. She's against Trump acting like a king, that he thinks he owns this country and he can do whatever he wants. That's all she's arguing about. And then let me read her quote for you. Do not be misled. This is not just about who can compete in the athletic field. This is about whether a president can force compliance with his will without regard for the rule of law, Governor Mills said in his statement. That's the point. Trump trying to bully people and trying to force his way. Congress approved the funding. It's hers. It's not his business to go back and start changing things on his own whim and just because trying to appeal to the culture war. That is completely wrong. And it has to do, let me give you just another thing she said. And so you remember this, because it's not just about trans people or gay people. He said, after Ms. Mills, or Governor Mills, clashed with Mr. Trump on Friday, she predicted that Maine would not be the last state that the president investigates for defying orders that conflict with the law. You must ask yourself, who and what will he target next? And what will he do? She said. Will it be you? Will it be because of your race or your religion? Will it be because you look different or think differently? Where does it end? And that's the problem now. And that's why she's taking him to court. She's not taking him to court for trans women and trans rights. No, she's taking him to court because he wants to act like a king, that he can do whatever he wants in our nation. That's why we have 3 branches. That's why we have the legislature. He needs to follow what the Constitution says. That's the bottom line. He may not like what she's going to do with those funds, but it's up to her. Now, the money has been granted to the state. It's hers by Congress approval. That's the end of it. You cannot arbitrarily say, oh, I'm taking the money away from you now. That's what dictators do. And we do not want to go that way. Stay conscious. Stay aware. You may agree or disagree, just like me, but there is the rule of law in this country. That's the end of it. Follow it, or we're going down to the deep end that's going to take us down to an abyss we will not be able to get of. We will not be able to get out of. I'm telling you the truth. I hope this makes a little sense for everyone out there. And y'all have a good rest of your weekend. Till next time, hasta la vista.